Oh, sorry.
No free plugs.
I know that's your thing.
Keeping you up to speed on all your Colorado teams. It's time for Coffee Break.
Happy Thursday, everybody. It's a great day to call the Mile High City home. It's a great day to be caffeinated. Welcome into Coffee Break. And it's a great day to be Garrett Bolles. Wouldn't you say, James?
Yeah. Really good day to be Garrett Bolles. Kind of came out of, totally came out of nowhere. Like, there hasn't really been much conversation about this. A surprising move, I guess, that they did it now and, didn't wait till the offseason to do it or whatever else. But yeah, Garrett Bolles getting a 4-year extension, making him an even richer man. Good day for GB.
After a up and down bumpy start to his career, the Broncos left tackle now signs his second contract extension with the team. 4 years, $82 million with $42 million guaranteed. And James, I got to be honest with you, I think Bolles has been a polarizing figure here in Broncos country, really from the onset. But this was absolutely the right move for the Broncos to make.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we had the same debate on the station back the last time he got an extension, even going back to when he was, whether or not he was going to get his 5th-year extension. And you had done all the research and how many guys don't get that, but then get re-signed and all that. So this has been going on a while. And just the point I made back then is the same now of, listen, I know he had the issues where, especially the Bears game where he had the 4 holding penalties. And I know holding number 72 kind of became a punchline, but people forget what it was like before Garrett Bolles got here. And they had some revolving doors at left tackle. And, the Ty Sambrailos of the world who nearly got quarterbacks killed against Vic Beasley and the Falcons is a game that kind of jumps to mind. So do I think Garrett Bolles is the best left tackle in football? Do I think he's Trent Williams? No. Do I think that's a position that by and large for the better part of a decade, they just haven't had to worry about? Yeah, I do. And that's a luxury. Like, you pay for that luxury at that position to not have to worry about it. I think this is a smart move by the Broncos.
You referenced, I think I was having a conversation with somebody in the hall. I think I've done more research on Garrett Bolles over the course of my tenure here at the Fan than almost any other player on the Denver Broncos. And you are correct. At the time that we were having that discussion right before COVID, the Broncos declined Garrett Bolles' 5th-year option and then signed him to that 4-year contract extension. And at that time, since the onset of the 5th-year option, which is not as old as some people think, he was, I believe, the 8th player in NFL history to have his 5th-year option declined and then sign an extension with the team that drafted him. And if we're going to call a spade, because I'm going to be quick on this show to give Bolles his flowers when it's deserved. Garrett Bolles was very fortunate that his contract year coincided with 2 unbelievable, impossible to foresee circumstances. In one, a COVID year where you had no fans in the stands, crowd noise wasn't an issue. It was one of the better offensive seasons for the NFL up to that point in recent history. And the NFL had also instructed its officiating crews to make a dedicated effort to call less holding penalties. So Garrett Bolles, whose issue was holding, in a contract year, got less holding penalties and no fans in the stands or crowd noise to kind of interject with any kind of issues along the offensive line communication-wise. He shouldn't have to apologize for that. Sometimes you just find a $20 bill on the street. You don't have to wonder whose it is. So you get that. And since then, though, to his credit, he has gotten better by and large. There was no question coming out of the draft. Bolles was one of the more athletic offensive tackles in that draft class, and he's kind of maintained that reputation in the NFL. And I'll say this, and you referenced it a little bit there. The Broncos have had a turnstile at offensive line, particularly when you look at the other side of the bookshelf. James, how many right tackles do you think the Broncos have started in the last 11 years?
I'm going to say 16 or 17.
The answer is 11.
Oh, okay.
So
less than I thought.
A new one every single year, and you see it there up on your screen. Mike McGlinchey, the most recent, but you run through Billy Turner, Bobby Massey, DeMar Dotson, Elijah Wilkinson, the bus lane, Jared Veldier, Menelik Watson, Donald Stevenson, Michael Schofield, Louis Vasquez, And Orlando Franklin, the last true stalwart at the right tackle position, was our guy, Orlando Franklin, who, by the way, had to move outside and to the opposite side of the line in order to fill that slot, which he did for a few years after Ryan Harris. So I kind of equated it to like, I think you hear or you see sometimes like the scenario of like a guy or woman in a relationship, and it's like, you know, you have a fight, something goes wrong, and you're like, man, you know what? I'm not into this. Being single might not be so bad. And then you get out there in the dating pool and you're like, you know what sucks? This sucks. So I understand Garrett Bolles is good for a holding offense, number 72 every now and then. And, you know, he may make some frustrating mistakes, but by and large, he is graded by the NFL analytics community and by his peers as one of the better offensive tackles in the league. And if it ain't broke, which it doesn't feel broke right now with the way Bo Nix is performing, don't try to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, is he a great left tackle? No. Is he really good? Yeah. And the fact that you pointed out the situation the team has had at right tackle, I think is a great point, right? Like you would be creating a situation where that's exactly what you would have at left tackle. Mm-hmm. You're searching almost every year trying to find the right guy. When you had one in place, could you upgrade from Garrett Bolles? Sure. But what would it cost you, right? It would cost you a first-round pick, and then
and I'd argue it's more likely that it's just as likely, if not more likely, that you would whiff on trying to upgrade on Garrett Bolles.
It's way more likely. Way more likely.
And instead, what you have now in the wake of this contract extension is you have Bo Nix's blind side protected for the next 4 years, so call it through 2029 because the extension will kick in after this season. His line mate, Quinn Miners, one of the better offensive guards in football, locked in through 2028. That's your left side of the offensive line. Center, you've got Luke Wattenberg, Alex Forsyth. You're probably going to figure out something to do, whether you extend Wattenberg or you move on to Forsyth or you go a different direction altogether. But on the right side, you've got Ben Powers locked in through, I think, 2026 because he only got a 3-year deal in free agency there. And McGlinchey got a 4-year to put him through 2027. So you've got, with a rookie quarterback who's already kind of outkicking his coverage a little bit, I think, expectation-wise, nationally and even here locally, you've got his front locked in for the next 2 to 3 seasons, at least on the left and right side. And that's a good thing. That's one less thing you've got to worry about as you try to turn this guy into your next franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and as good a year as they're having, right? 8-5. If they win Sunday, they're basically a lock for the playoffs. Like, it would be a major upset right now if they don't make the postseason. Broncos are having a good year, but the fact that they've got that spot in place, you're right. It allows them to go upgrade other places during the offseason, which they still need to do. They need to go figure out, all right, who's some playmakers at receiver? Running back's a huge issue. Tight end is a big issue. Like, they still have things they have to do. Having this box checked, I think is huge. And, you know, like he does, and it was comical when he would get multiple penalties in games. But even the years before COVID and before they said, you know, don't call holding as much, he would have like 15 or 16 holding penalties a year. It's like one a game. I'll take a 10-yard penalty over the quarterback just getting blindsided all day long. If I'm the offensive line coach, I'm like, hey, if you get beat, grab the guy.
Yeah.
We'll go with
don't we instruct DBs to do that? Like, hey, if you're getting torched over the top, grab the guy by the jersey or horse collar him down because we'll take the penalty over a touchdown.
And you're going up against the other team's best pass rusher, play after play after play after play. It really was never that bad. And Laramie Tunsil at the time was like the only guy who had more holding penalties in that season than Garrett Bolles. And he's a guy who got a big contract, was considered one of the best tackles in football. It just was an overplayed narrative. Glad the Broncos ignored it. I'm glad he's cleaned it up a little bit. And it's interesting because a guy who's been much maligned is going to end up spending over a decade here, right? And then you start having the conversation like, is he the best left tackle in franchise history? Gary Zimmerman is a Hall of Famer, but he wasn't here near as long. Garrett Bolles is going to be in that conversation, which go back to COVID when we were debating the 5th-year option. Would anybody have thought that? Like, that's a crazy turn.
No, it was borderline unprecedented what happened to Bolles after the declining of his 5th-year option. And even among those players who did sign an extension with that team after having their option declined, very few of them, I'd have to go back and look at the exact research that I have somewhere in my bird's nest of a desk, but it was not just guaranteed that they were going to go on to have good careers after that or even sign another extension beyond that one like we see Bolles doing. And I'm glad that Jason in our chat and guys like Cecil Lemmy, if you ask them, brought it up. The Broncos have some quality depth at the tackle positions on the offensive line, even behind the starters that we have locked in with Palcho and Frank Crum. And I think that you had to extend Garrett Bolles if you're the Broncos for all the multitude of reasons that we just brought up. But at the end of the day, you're still going to need depth at those positions, and we have that. And I'm glad you mentioned the ability that this gives them to expand their scope beyond the trenches when it comes to positions that you need to upgrade, because they do need that, especially on offense. And the one that I wanted to bring up to you today, which you teed up for me, is the running back situation, because the Broncos are going to the playoffs this year. I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
You can old takes expose me. You can do whatever you want. But in order to have reasonable success or the expectation of success in the playoffs, and then even looking forward beyond the next 2, 3, 4, 6 years that we're going to have here with Bo Nix, they need to figure out how to run the football better. And the horses they got in the stable are not doing it.
No, I hate running back by committee.
Yep.
They're doing running back by committee because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing hot hand because they have to. If they had a guy, if they had the answer, if they had a workhorse, that's who it would be. Most drives, most plays, most games. And the fact that there's a constant rotation just tells you they don't have the guy. They don't have the answer.
How often have we heard like the adage, like if you have two quarterbacks, you have none, unless you're Pete Carroll, who said, if you have we have two quarterbacks in Geno and Drew Lock that we think are two starters. So everybody but Pete Carroll is in on that. And I think the same could apply. If you've got 3 or 4 running backs, in some ways you have none if you're having to, platoon committee approach the whole situation. And the Broncos with Javonte Williams, I think, had a lot of genuine promise when he was coming out of the draft. He was never like a home run hitter, 60, 70-yard breakaway kind of guy. But he was kind of a bruiser. He had the ability to kind of get nasty between the tackles. He was good in pass protection, still is. I would argue above average at pass protection. I think that's why you see him on a lot of third downs. But behind him, you've got Jaleel McLaughlin, who I think has everything that Javonte doesn't in terms of explosiveness and things after his injury. And you've got Audric Estime, who is kind of like the wrecking ball, kind of similar archetype to Javonte, but younger, fresher, and maybe a little bit more upside at this point. And I think, James, at this point, you've got to run with one of those two guys as your lead back going forward. I think the hot hand approach is too much of a gamble to think that you're going to hit the dice just the right way every single game and play it situationally. Sean Payton's a good coach, and I think he's seen a lot of offensive football. So I understand his confidence in himself to do that. I just don't think it's the best bet.
I don't like it, but I think with that group, it's your only option. Like, you got to pick one and ride him. Which one are you going to pick? Like, Jaleel to me is too small.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the best home run hitter of the bunch? Yeah. But as you were talking about it, I'm thinking back, like, the Philip Lindsay run that he had against the Bengals, where it was like a 65-yard touchdown. Like, we don't see that from Jaleel McLaughlin. Like, he's the explosive one of this bunch, but is he
Philip Lindsay with what he was able to do, becoming the first undrafted player ever to have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons and then make a Pro Bowl and everything. Sean Payton, just like myself, and I would argue most of Broncos country, would literally kill to have Philip Lindsay level production. We love our guy Phil. At this point in the season from the running back position. But I'll say this.
They'd be better off to have Melvin Gordon back when he was a Bronco. Not now, obviously, but at the time, like Melvin Gordon, when he was a Bronco, is better than any of the backs they have right now. He just is. So do you trust Audric Estime? I don't. Do you trust?
I think you have to start. You have to start. Because listen, and you're bringing up Melvin Gordon is almost another little flinch point for me, because I became I feel like I just naturally fell into becoming an unabashed Melvin Gordon defender because of what he was able to do. And yes, he had a fumbling problem. And we've seen Audric Estime early in the season. I think he had 2 fumbles in his first 8 carries or something crazy.
Yeah.
And had to tape the ball to his wrist and all that. And I was like really, very like remember the Titans level.
Very high school.
Yeah. But here's what I'll say. If you had to make me pick one right now, I would pick Jaleel, because he's given you the biggest body of work to do it. But his size physically gives him limitations, because although he has the same kind of archetype as a Philip Lindsay, he does not have the ability to absorb contact between the tackles and push the ball down the field the way that Philip Lindsay did.
Well, he worries me in pass protection with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I got you. I agree. And that's where Javonte's role is still the strongest. But I'll say this, if you're going to trot Javonte Williams out there at the start of the game eliminate him for the remainder of the game, except in third down situations, that becomes a tell.
Huge
defensively. Every time Javonte from the midway through the first quarter on, when Javonte Williams is trotting out on the field on third down, it's a pass.
Well, look, is Jaleel more explosive than Javonte? Yeah. But the gap isn't so much that I'm willing to take Javonte. One, I don't want to have the tell. And two, I don't want to take Javonte's pass protection off the field. If it was a huge disparity in terms of playmaking ability from a big play standpoint, you roll the dice and you're like, that's a trade-off. I just don't think it's worth the trade-off. I don't think Audric Estime or Jaleel brings enough additional firepower, juice, whatever you want to call it, to the field to be worth taking the reliability of Javonte off the field. That's a very conservative answer.
I know.
An approach. I get it.
I'm going the opposite. I'm saying it's time to pop Audric in the microwave. I think you got to put him out there.
Boy.
You got to listen.
Based on what, though? We haven't seen anything that tells us, yeah, that's got the potential to really have a big upside.
I think we have. I think after the first, handful of carries where he fumbled the ball and then basically got, sent in timeout for a handful of weeks. I don't think he's been given enough spot sample opportunity because, again, the running back's a rhythm position. Tossing him out there every so often or in very situational packages isn't necessarily the best opportunity for him to showcase what he has, but they brought him in to be Javonte's replacement. He's a similar archetype to Javonte. I think he's 6'1", 220 or something like that. So he's got size and stature. He can clearly move the ball in space when it's tight and compacted there between the tackles. And I just think that you can't have your running game limited to, we're going to use Javonte in pass protection. We're going to hope we can get, some between the tackles and schemed up runs for Jaleel. And then Audric Estime maybe in garbage time or in a short goal to go situation. I think you've got to see what you've got in this kid, because what you have with the running back situation right now, if you take Bo Nix's his production out of the Broncos running offense, they're a bottom 5 rushing team in the league. So for you to conservatively say, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze enough to take Javonte's baseline off the field in favor of the other things, what I'm telling you is the juice sucks right now. It's a bottom 5 juice.
Agreed, but it's the same with all of them, right?
But you have the potential to make it better with Audric than you do.
You have the potential. Okay. But you also I don't feel like when you're 8-5, you got 4 games left. You're trying to make a playoff push. You're competing for the number 5 seed, which I think is vitally important. Now's not the time to see what you got in a guy. If they were 5-8, sure. Cause you're thinking about next year.
I'm not thinking about next year. I'm thinking about next month. I'm thinking about the playoffs.
The best running back they've had all season long was Tyler Bidet.
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel like
he's hurt
4 years ago? It feels like forever ago.
Yeah,
that was the best performance they've had. The one game where he looked like a legit option. Otherwise, yeah, it's not very good. But it's not very good with any of them.
And if Tyler Bidet was still healthy, I'd be advocating for, and we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation because I think it would have naturally taken place. That Bidet would have eaten into more of those carries and more of that role. But if Bidet was here and the situation was what it is, I would be advocating for Bidet the same way I'm advocating for more Audric Estime. I think you need to develop a situation where he can be your closer. And yes, if you need to use Javonte in obvious passing situations and things like that, I get it. But in 3rd and 5 and in, I don't like having Javonte Williams out there, even if he is running the ball, because A, he hasn't been very effective doing it, and B, it's a tell for the defense that basically says they're either going to pass it or they're going to run it with a guy that we feel pretty confident we can stop. If Estime can develop into more of that role, and we're trotting him out there on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, suddenly I think it makes it more difficult for the offense or the defense to game plan against.
I think we can probably both agree their starting running back next year isn't on the roster right now.
Probably not.
So, maybe it's Audric Estime. And I get what you're saying, and I get the potential upside. I just haven't seen anything. There haven't been the flashes where I'm like, ooh, I got to see more of that. Could he be marginally better?
Were we not excited about this guy as a wrecking ball coming out of college?
It's all I heard during training camp. And I was like, really? It's a 5th round pick. More likely to be gone in 2 years than he is to be the starting running back for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, you could say that about a lot of draft picks.
You could say that about day 3 draft picks are almost all that way. But everybody was telling me, all the draft nicks were telling me he's the answer. Really? Because that's why every other team passed on him 4 times. I wasn't buying it then. I'm not buying it now. I think Javonte is the known commodity, and I think where this team is at right now, it's the devil you know. That's what the Broncos need to do, and just stick with it. I get it. There's not the big upside, but there's
listen,
also not the big downside, Richie.
Listen, you want to trade in bonds. I'm a stock guy. So we'll just agree to disagree on that. Now, you did say something that I agree with, which is the starting running back for the Denver Broncos in 2025 and beyond is probably not on this roster. And I think we had a very similar sentiment when it came to the playoff goalie for the Colorado Avalanche. If you had asked, if we'd asked this question a month ago, I think a lot of people here at this station and beyond would have said, hey, the playoff goalie that we're going to be relying on for the Colorado Avalanche, if they're going to make another cup run, not currently on the roster with Eustace and Georgie. And I think it was evidenced by that, the fact that they shipped both of those guys out of town, and we now have Scott Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood. We're bringing the wood between the pipes, and Blackwood has been dealing with some illnesses. He may be between the pipes tonight. I think we'll know here pretty soon. If it's come out already, I haven't seen it, at least since we started this show. But I want to know, James, how you feel about the revamped, updated version of the goaltending situation for the Colorado Avalanche as we turn toward, the midway point, getting toward the end of the season.
I think they had to make a change because I think the players in the room had lost faith in Georgie.
100%.
And we've talked about it a lot. He just needed to be fine. He didn't need to be really good. He didn't need to be great. He didn't need to be elite. He just needed to be fine, and he couldn't do that on a consistent basis. Do I think the combination of the two Woods can give him fine most nights? Yeah, probably. But again, this team is built to win 4-3, 5-4. This isn't something that's going to allow them. I know the last couple games maybe make people think this. They're not going to be winning 2-1. They're not going to be winning 2-0. Can they occasionally now get that and take a little bit of the pressure off
the ability to
their stars? Yeah. But look, this isn't the cure-all. All of a sudden, they're not going to be like, ooh, they got Vasilevsky back. It's not like something like that. It's not Shesterkin. It's not one of the elite goaltenders. But they don't need him to be. They just need him to be fine most nights. That's all. And I think they have a chance for that.
By the way, if you throw in Miles Wood, we got a 3 Wood here in Colorado with the Avalanche. We got 3. I don't know if there's any more out there that we can bring in, but I'm all for it. Just like we had the morning show. I love it. Stokely and Evans with Mark Schlereth. They always comment about all the onions with you got McKinnon, you got Rantanen, you got Lehkonen. It's like, how many onions can we get? And we had Annunen for a minute. I'm all for it. So I'm excited with the prospect that the Wood can provide us, the Woods. But I'll say this, and I said it before, and I'm going to stick with it. I was in favor of swinging for the fences and trying to bring in a top tier level goaltender, even if it meant sacrificing Mikko Rantanen, who, by the way, like immediately after that, just has another hat trick. I think he has like 10 hat tricks. And 3 of them have been this season. But and Will Peterson, prior to this, on this show and on denversports.com, argued the opposite. He wanted basically what it sounds like you're flipping and advocating for now, because I think you and I were on the same page about swinging for the fences before, but I think that now you may have a different tune of like, hey, we don't need it to be Shesterkin or a top flight level goaltender, Sorokin. We just need somebody who's going to be able to not blow it up. We're not going to give up 4 goals in the first period and be chasing the entire time. That is what the Avs have chosen. And my stance on it now, without the ability to see Mackenzie Blackwood between the pipes for us yet, hopefully we get that tonight, is it better work. It better work.
Yeah, it better work. And if they don't extend Mikko and don't trade him at the deadline, then they better win the cup.
It will be
will be a huge whiff. Huge mistake.
If they play the game of chicken with Mikko and his camp, who in my opinion have all the leverage, because you can say, and might be right, justifiably so, by saying that like, well, Mikko Rantanen is a 100-point goal scorer because he plays on a line with Nathan McKinnon and Arturi Lehkonen on the top line. Okay, yeah, playing next to Nathan McKinnon is a lot like playing next to Nikola Jokic, right? Your stats probably look better. I don't think it's that drastic of a stat. I think Mikko's one of the 10 best players in hockey right now, and I think that it's enough of a sample size and a body of work for Mikko's point of view that he can say, yeah, I'll go play for Calgary. And so what if I, instead of scoring 103 points, I scored 92?
Yeah.
Still pretty freaking good. And I don't think it's enough for him to be like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'll take several $1 million less than I could get every year for the next 8 years to continue playing next to the guys I'm playing with. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know Mikko personally. I've only had limited interactions with him in the locker rooms over the last few years. But if you play that game of chicken and you lose and they don't win the cup, it's going to be an all-time egg on the face blunder for the Avs.
Big time. And especially if you don't win the cup because you don't get good goaltending, right?
Ugh.
Like they can't get fine goaltending 16 times during the playoffs, which is kind of all they need. They already won a cup doing it. You and I talked about it. I think it was Monday of like, is that formula something you can win?
Are you going to strike lightning twice?
Or is that like trying to win a Super Bowl with a great defense? Like you can do it once, but the great defenses, Broncos in Super Bowl 50, the latest example, typically don't win a second one. That's the gamble there. It appears that they're taking. And then the Mikko situation will be another big gamble. Look, Chris McFarland's he's taking the risk. You better win a cup. If you win a cup and Mikko walks, but you won it because you kept him here, fine. It's not great, but it's not a disaster. If you don't win a cup and he walks for nothing, that is a disaster.
Well,
it's a fireable offense.
I've been known to be a gambling man myself in the past, and I think a lot of our major sports teams here in town are dealing with gambles of their own. If you're asking me to throw some chips behind Garrett Bolles for the Denver Broncos for the next 4 years, I'll take that bet. The Nuggets with what they're gambling right now with, rolling out the starting five that they have and the depth concerns that they have and all that and trying to maximize Jokic's prime. Not a huge fan of that thus far. We'll see. They still have time to make some adjustments. And I'm TBD on the gamble on Mackenzie Blackwood, Scott Wedgwood, and the goalie situation here in town. But one thing is for sure, we will be on top of it all. It's going to be fascinating to watch it unfold for all three of those teams respectively. And we're all going to be watching for different things. So, James, what's going on at denversports.com that we need to know about?
Oh, just, all sorts of content. It's a great time of year with, 3 teams in action and never a dull moment in terms of storylines. But, the GB news was just the latest example, all sorts of content on it. Andrew Mason was down at Broncos Park powered by Common Spirit when it happened. He was all over it, and he'll have more content about it as the day goes on. But yeah, written stories, podcasts, videos, you name it, you can check it all out.
All the content you could ever wish for at denversports.com, on the Denver Sports app. Like and subscribe our YouTube channel where hopefully you're watching us right now. So much great content on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at denversports.com. It's all there at your disposal, 24/7, 365. And we'll be back again tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day.